Hi, my name is Ethan, and I go by he, him. I identify as female to male, transgender. I'm 18. I've come to the realization that I've been trans since I was 15, so about 3 years ago. People ask me if it's difficult, which it is, between waking up in the morning and going to bed, going to school. It's all very, very difficult. Female to male means I was biologically born female, but I am since transitioning to become male. This is something that I felt since I was 3, my earliest memories. I was never comfortable with being called she or her. I was never comfortable with my birth name. I think as a kid it was hardest because no one really listened to me. No one really paid attention to what I was trying to say or how I was saying it, so no one took me seriously and no one gave second thoughts to it. Feeling something that I didn't know what the feeling was, and I couldn't go to anyone about it, and that really sucked. My dad feels like he should blame himself for me being trans, and it's not something that I think he should blame himself for. He thinks that because he raised me in a tomboy way, that's why I'm like this, and that's not really the case because my older sister, she was raised the same exact way, but she is still cis. Cis meaning she feels that she is the gender she was assigned at birth, but I do not. I feel indifferently, and I'm very curious to find out what it would be like to look in the mirror and not see some monster looking back at you. So the definition of transgender, if you take time to look it up, is denoting or relating to a person whose sense of personal identity and gender does not correspond with their birth sex. So as I said before, I was assigned female at birth, but that was not the case my whole life. As I felt in here and in my heart, I knew that I was different, but I could not put a name to it. And now that I've put a name to it, I feel like that I have found myself. I feel like that I can break out of this shell that I've been living in for 18 years. I also have this thing called gender dysphoria that kind of goes along with being transgender. Gender dysphoria is the condition of feeling one's emotional and psychological identity as male or female to be opposite to one's biological sex. It's kind of more than what the definition says. It's a very unbearable feeling. Sometimes transgender people don't feel it at all. They're completely comfortable with what they were born with. But a lot of transgender people, such as me, feel gender dysphoria as if, and I'm not trying to be over dramatic or stretch this out, but it feels like a knife going through you repeatedly, and because it's gone through you so many times, you're just numb. It's looking in the mirror and seeing someone else. It's looking at yourself and knowing something is not right in more ways than one. Most of the time it's physical appearances, and that factors in a lot to my self-esteem, which is very, very, very low. And kind of, I never really got a chance to hang out with my mom my full 18 years. She passed away when I was 16 years old, and since it's been 2 years, I feel like I don't know how she would react to me coming out as trans, to me coming out as her son, and it scares me that if she was still alive today that she would reject me as she did before, but for different reasons. Being trans is really hard for me because it knocks down a lot of opportunities, whether it's making friends or it be a job opportunity, because some people are really against the whole letting trans people work for them. It's really hard because dysphoria gets me almost every minute of every day, whether it's my voice, looking in the mirror and seeing someone that's not me. And it's really hard for me to comprehend that sometimes, to really wrap it around my head that, hey, you don't look like every other guy, or you don't sound like every other guy, you don't move, you don't behave like every other guy. And it's beyond difficult, and it's hard for me to put into words so that people will understand how much it hurts and frustrates me every day to wake up and see someone else. You've renamed yourself and someone calls you by your birth name, but a lot of trans people call it a dead name because that part of them is dead. And it's hard to be called my birth name a lot. Even when I was little, I hated the name. I hated my first name, my middle name, I hated it, and I didn't understand why. But as I grew up and came to the realization that I was transgender, it dawned upon me why every little thing that bothered me as a kid having to do with feminism, I understood. I didn't like that my mother tried to put me in dresses. I didn't like that I couldn't do things because I wasn't qualified as a boy. And now I understand all the dysphoria that I got. I thought it was just me being a teenager, I hate growing up type of thing, and it wasn't. Now I know more or less how to cope with it, how to deal with it, but it still gets me every minute of every day, and it hurts so much to try and tell people what you're going through when they themselves don't understand. They don't understand you, so why would they understand what you're going through? I try to explain to them the way I'm explaining it now. Sometimes it gets so much for you that you feel like it'd be okay to disappear one day. That if you magically just weren't there, you'd be okay with it. And I don't want to be like that. I want to enjoy life. I want to live my life. It's a lot that's stopping me from doing that. People will take time out of their day to understand transgendered people and know what they're going through and try. Key word here is try. A lot of people don't try, and that's the problem. Try to call people by their preferred name. Try to call people by their preferred pronouns. Don't sit there and if you get angry at them, call them by their birth name, call them by the incorrect pronouns. That's not how that works, and it doesn't help. And I've been asked by my family before, have you ever thought of just staying the gender that you were assigned to at birth? And I always thought it'd be easier, but at the same time, if I didn't change how I looked on the outside to what I feel on the inside, as I said before, it would get so much that I wouldn't mind disappearing. I don't want to leave everything behind. That was, that could have been, that will be. I don't want to do that. I do get a lot of support from mainly my friends and my teachers, not a lot of family members, but it's understandable, I suppose, but they don't try at all. And again, that's what's hardest on me, is that they don't try. Not for their sake, but for my sake. So that one day I don't have to disappear.